So we've got a 6-mark question here from a chemistry paper. So remember, there's always a lot of writing in these questions. Well, not always, but quite often there's a lot of writing in these questions. And it's about dissecting the information that's given to you. So making sure you spend at least 6 minutes on this, ensuring that you understand everything and writing a well-constructed answer. Speaking about well-constructed answers, you know that in these questions you need to be using good English to try and write in prose rather than write in bullet points. You need to organise information clearly, so hold the bullet points in your head while writing the prose to make sure things are clearly laid out, and use specialist terms where appropriate, so using scientific language correctly. So right, this is talking about the electrolysis of sodium chloride solution and the fact that it produces chlorine and sodium hydroxide. In industry, the electrolysis of sodium chloride solution can be done in several types of electrolysis cell. Some information about 2 of the types of cells is given below. So we've got stuff about mercury cell and we've got stuff about a membrane cell. We've got some stuff about cost and additional substances. We've got some information about the amount of electricity produced. Talked about chlorine that's being produced and also the quality of sodium hydroxide produced as well. Well, when you're answering these sort of questions, especially when there's something that's related to related to generating electricity or related to electrolysis or somewhere in that area, you've got to be thinking about economic, environmental, well, mainly economic and environmental advantage and disadvantage. They're the 2 areas. So you know that within here there's stuff that's to do with the economic side of things, i.e. the cost of construction, but also the environmental side of things, i.e. whether things can be recycled or not. Okay, so we need to make sure we lay our points out clearly. You need to talk about each one in turn. So if you're going to talk about the cost of the mercury cell, back that up with a point about the cost of a membrane cell. So I'm not actually going to write the answer here in the space underneath, because it actually says use information and your knowledge and understanding to compare the environmental and economic advantage and disadvantages of these 2 types of electrolysis cell. So I'm not actually going to write the answer here. I'm going to go through the points that I would write. Well, let's talk economic first, because you can see the first point is about economic up here. So, firstly, economically, the mercury cell is more expensive than the membrane cell, as the membrane cell is relatively cheap. Okay. Secondly, let's talk about an environmental point now. The mercury cell can be recycled, but the membrane cell must be made from polymer. It must be remade. Okay. Mercury is toxic. Okay, but polymers aren't generally. Okay, removing all traces of mercury is probably expensive. It's a good bet to say it's expensive. Okay, that does not need to be done over here. Mercury cells make more electricity. Okay, so that's an economic advantage and an environmental advantage. The fact it's making more electricity. Mercury cells also produce chlorine when it's purer, so it's easier to use and can therefore more income can be generated by selling them on. And mercury cells also produce a higher concentration of sodium hydroxide. Okay, it's also better quality sodium hydroxide because it's higher solution is a good way of putting it. Okay, it's the same idea goes through. Steam is used to concentrate the sodium hydroxide solution that's actually produced. So you can see that if you go through the table step by step, weighing up one side against the other, you can get 6 marks on these questions quite easily.